let's talk about this very interesting movie. 1987 Hellraiser, the one that started it all.
Yeah, which is incredible that it spanned 11 movies.
11 fucking movies. And the crazy thing is that more than half of them were straight to DVD.
I mean, why are they still going at that point? What kind of I mean, they must have been bringing in a shit ton of money there. That's the
I
only
don't know how
reason.
the straight to DVD revenue works, but
Wrong Turn is another series that I'm pretty sure either the second I it might have just been the second or the third one was straight to video on demand. I didn't even see the original for a long time, which was, like, really not good when I saw it finally, and then, like, they just did a reboot of it that was actually the best one, which is pretty similar, I think, for some of these old series that are getting rebooted now. We'll get there, but, I mean, this is
yeah.
still a classic, but it's a weird
Yeah,
ass movie.
it's definitely like it's a movie that for 1987, like it was doing some pretty wild things. Like it
Yes.
paved the way for a lot of stuff. And even rewatching it this week, like there's parts of this movie that I'm just like, Jesus, this is this is hardcore.
Jesus
Even
wept.
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
Such a good last line. But, I will say, yeah, no, the hooks and this movie has a lot of things that I'm just not here for on a general, like, "Oh, that's in the movie? Perfect, sign me up." No way. Like, not a
Oh,
big skinning person or the chains and, there's a lot of 80s practical effects, which I think makes it a little easier, but it's still, like, gross, you know?
yeah,
There's a lot of gooiness and red
it's
blood-skinned people, like, disgusting.
it's very gross.
Like, for
Like
how
it's
horny this movie is, why is it so disgusting? How are people horny in this movie with how much disgusting shit is
oh,
happening? I'll never
yeah,
get it.
like I don't think this movie is gory. I think it's gross. Like in my head, there's very different. Those are two very different things. Like there's gory, which is blood, guts, hostile, but like this is gross. Like,
There's a lot of gross stuff, but I will say, like, I'm gonna fight you on that and say the
it
chains ripping people
it's
apart is pretty gory.
it's very gory. I'm not
But I
saying
know
it's
what you
not
mean
gory.
by that in the same way this movie feels more close to, like, the Fly remake from the '80s and then, like, The Thing special effects, where it's all practical and it's really gross looking, but it's, like, not as gory as I would
Yeah,
think about gore, but maybe that's just because also we weren't, like, watching these movies back then. So
yeah,
this was gory at that time, but now it
yeah.
just looks gross.
I feel like this is the only movie that Eli Roth watched growing up. He's just like, I'm gonna be grosser than this
I think he
in the
did,
things
yeah.
I do.
This movie has the '80s thing though, where it's not only nasty, it's gooey.
It's
Everything in the
gooey.
'80s gore-wise was really gooey and, like, disgusting and, just ugh, okay, yeah, talk about
So
it. Do you wanna do a little
yeah.
overview?
Yeah, I'll do a little thing. So yeah, this movie came out in 1987. And just for all of us to kind of know what was going on back then, the original Predator came out that year. Jaws: The Revenge. Is that
The
the
4th one.
second? That's the fourth?
The one with Michael Caine, and it takes place in Jamaica, I think,
Michael
with the
Caine.
shark chasing the mom there.
uh, Good Morning Vietnam, RoboCop,
Never seen
and
that.
RoboCop's solid. I watched it a bunch as a kid. And Princess Bride.
Oh, Princess Bride, classic.
Yeah, so there's some good movies that were going on then. So here's the before I say the plot of this movie, just for anyone who has not seen this movie, I would not say this is a movie that you should go watch. It is unless you really like gore and horror movies, maybe don't watch this. This is an unsettling movie.
I
Like
wouldn't even say unsettling, it's just gross, but it's also, like, it's just very weird, it's, like, a certain kind of taste. Like, I love horror, so I was like, "I have to at least check out the first one, just to know what the fuck this is."
this is not a good. I'm gonna dip my toe in the
Oh god, no,
horror
you'll
genre.
run away screaming and never come back. There's a lot of, like, skinned corpses, chains ripping people apart, a lot of, like, corpses that
Goo.
are yeah, gooey, bloody, just disgusting shit, and it's just really weird, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it is notable that it is, like, a classic that people who love horror, there's a big
Yeah.
community that fucking love these movies. I've always wondered why, and I had to watch, and I'm not sure I still know, but I've at least seen the second one after it, and they're definitely, like, well-made movies, like, they're definitely good, they're
Yeah.
going for a certain thing, and they're nailing that.
Yeah.
It's just not necessarily my thing. I love horror movies, and I'll watch fucked up shit all day, but I'm still not into, like this feels like very early torture porn.
Yeah.
I know that
It
it's more than that, I get it, I'm not just, like, gross. I can handle fucking gore, but it's like I know there's a plot, so thank God, but still, it's just a lot to handle, even if it's from the '80s, it's just gross.
Yeah. So the movie was, the budget was super low. It was made for less than $1 million. I know some of the sequels were made for like less than $500,000, but it grossed about $14 million. So it was a hit. Like they definitely made money off this. So I mean that explains maybe the next three sequels. The next eight, I don't know, but
Yeah, I still can't believe that I mean, I get the reboot thing,
yeah.
but all the ones in between, I mean, I can't believe are you out there? Are you still watching these things every couple years when they would throw them out there and just
Sorry
see
guys, can't come over watching Hellraiser again.
yeah. I can't even name any of the other ones, but they just sound ridiculous, and they go to space pretty early, like, I think the 4th one, which
Yeah.
usually is like, that's like a 7th or 8th thing, come on. Nobody goes to space until you've forgotten how to do things, like, you're like, "We need to go somewhere different."
And that's the weird part is like the third or the fourth one is technically like the end. So like the end they solve the problem of the Cenobites. And so then the next 8 movies I guess just happen in between the, the second and the third movie.
Yeah, they're like, "Well, technically, we could still go back in time," People are obviously wanting more of these things. I mean, I can't imagine that they get any better, I'm sure that they just get worse and that they probably
Yes.
just get more and more disgusting, would I be right?
Yeah, you're right
Yeah,
there.
I don't need to watch any of them.
But okay, so the plot of this movie is a woman discovers the newly resurrected, partially formed body of her brother in law. She starts killing for him to revitalize his body so he can escape the demonic beings that are pursuing him after he escaped the sadistic underworld. Uh,
Mouthful.
yeah, thanks, IMDb. I mean, I think my plot for this movie would just it wouldn't even be a plot. I think I would just change the title to Moist, the
Ew.
horror.
It would be fitting, but it'd be
It's
disgusting.
this movie is just so wet and gooey. We've already said it a bunch, but like
It's the key
it's
word.
it's so weird.
I agree with that. It is very gooey, very disgusting. Everybody wants like there's a bunch of fucking that's happening or trying to happen and I don't understand any of it. None of it's sexy and all of it is gross. So I don't know why anyone is into anything in this movie. And everybody is like people were like they cast like real actors in this movie and I was like did they? Honestly like I get it for like the Cenobites, but like I mean are we trying to say that the chick who plays Kirsty is a really good actress? Because, like, I don't know. She's fine, but, like,
I I liked Kirsty.
I like her, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know if I call her an actress. Like, has she been in literally anything else besides
No.
Hellraiser 2?
I looked
Because
at
I
her
know that she's
IMDb.
in that. But that's what I'm saying, and, like, the guy who plays the husband,
I hate him.
he's such a bad actor, and
I
he's also
hate
just so
him
bad.
so much.
He has all of my favorite lines in the movie, though, besides I think Pinhead has the best ones. But he has the second best ones, like when they're moving into the house and the movers, like, they move that giant ass mattress into the hallway from the door, and then they're like, "Oh, man, we should take a break. Let's get some beers." And then when Kirsty shows up, the daughter, And they're like, "Oh, wow, she really got her mother's looks." And right away, the dad immediately responds with, like, before they get that out of their mouth, he's like, "Her mother's dead." And it's like, "Whoa, awkward." It made me laugh so hard.
That your daughter? Uh-huh. Got her mother's looks. Her mother's dead.
Just like he's so quick to respond that way, and it really just shuts everything down. It was great, but it was hilarious.
My other favorite line of his was right after the mom kills the first guy in the
Mhm.
attic. She's like covered in blood, and then she runs into the bathroom, and then the dad comes up and he's like, "You want a cookie, little girl?" It's
Yeah,
like,
he's super
what?
weird. And that's the whole thing of the movie, right? Is that this chick who's married to this guy Larry, she's obsessed for some unknowable reason with his brother Frank, which
Yeah.
like see their scene where they meet and have sex and it is not sexy at all. It's weird and just disturbing. Again, it's not attractive. He whips out a fucking blade is before they even
Yeah.
like take their clothes off. I'm like, Jesus. And he's the reason for all of this problems, and so he solves this, he finds this puzzle box.
Yeah, the movie starts with him getting a puzzle box, and then he solves it. And back on the note of, like, this movie being very sexual, like, the puzzle box is really sexual, like, the way they rub the top, I'm like, like, if we just changed the music to, like, "Take my breath away," it's like
It's
it's
a
like a
sex
very
scene.
sensual
I
thing.
mean, again, if it would be if the guy wasn't immediately, like, ripped apart with chains.
That scene with "Take My Breath Away" still
Yeah,
is different even with the chains.
yeah, so this guy gets taken, and then he's taken down to hell because, of course, because he's like, "Oh, I've had everything in the world. I've had all the pleasures, so I'm gonna go to heaven or hell, whatever this thing opens." I mean, Jesus Christ, dude, relax. What are all these people with "I've had too much sensation and I need more"? It's like, are you kidding? I would rather have no sensation for the rest of my life than have way too much. That would be the worst. Who is looking for that? And so then, yeah, they get taken to hell, and then his brother and
Yeah.
his wife move in to the house,
I
and
think they, like, inherit it or something.
whatever. The guy isn't even officially dead. They're just like, "Oh, he's gone." So I don't even remember how that whole worked. They just
Oh.
showed up and they were like, "Oh, he's been squatting here." So maybe he wasn't even supposed to be living there. And then the husband cuts himself up in the attic, and then the creepy ass
No,
fucking
he cuts himself while they're moving the mattress.
yeah.
That was one of the weirdest things to me, is during the whole thing of the wife remembering her fucking the brother. Like, they're showing them having sex, and it's like they're doing this parallel of them having sex and then the dad moving the mattress.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What what's going on?" Like,
Turning everybody on.
it's just like he's just like plowing into her, just pushing into her, and they're just like, push the mattress. It's like this parallel. And then yeah, he gets his hand cut on the nail and it just gashes him. And I'm like, that's a lot of blood for a
Yeah.
hand. Like what? It's
I
like a
know.
cherry pie. Like
When they're, like, doing that, it is literally just disturbing how much, like, blood comes out of that wound onto the floor. It's like, there's no way that there would be that much.
yeah. It's like you hit an artery or something in the top of your hand. What's going on?
I know, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's very weird, and then she starts, like, bringing home men that she's seduced to, like, feed this guy because she's into more the skinned corpse is more attractive to her than her husband, which, like, I get it, this guy's not anything, but also, like, girl, go out there and get yourself another man. This sounds like too much fucking work.
I was halfway expecting there to be like a sex scene between her and the skinless version of him.
I mean, she
Like,
sucked his fingers. That was already enough. It was just disgusting. Why? Why is anybody horny in this movie? Everyone looks disgusting. But again, I haven't read like the original, like, text that this is based off of. But maybe like it makes more sense then. But for me, it just seems like it's a very bizarre story and setup. And I know Clive Barker is like a horror, like everybody loves him, and he's also an author. I've never read any of his stuff. It sounds pretty fucked up. Like once I knew he did Hellraiser, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I need to check out his other shit. But I was very surprised to find out that he also wrote the short story that is responsible for Candyman.
Oh,
And I actually
interesting.
really enjoy Candyman, the original movie and the new one. That one should have had 10 sequels. I'm sure it does. It probably has like 3 or 4, but it's better to me. I like that one better than this one, which I know is based on The Hellbound Heart.
I feel like it's interesting or unique that he wrote the story and then adapted his own story.
Mhm.
Is there I can't think of any other authors that have done that. Can you think of any?
Well, I do know that besides, I know Stephen King, and I've mentioned it, that he wrote the short story Trucks that Maximum Overdrive is based off of.
Mhm.
And he also directed that, but that's the only one he ever directed. But then I know Clive Barker did it a bit more, and then also I want to say Michael Crichton, who obviously didn't direct Jurassic Park, but a lot of authors that have switched into it, they've all said, I saw how other directors took the words I wrote and then like changed it, and I wanted to have more full control over my whole vision, which makes
Mm.
sense. Like Alex Garland is another director who did Men and Annihilation and stuff. He hasn't directed, I don't think, any of his own work, but he's actually an author is where he was first. And
Mm.
then he was writing screenplays, but then he was like, I want to actually be the one directing the vision as well. So
Yeah,
it's a very rare thing. I think it's really cool that you can have like such a way with the written word, but then also be very visual too. Because Clive Barker, I will say, he definitely is visual,
definitely.
a little too visual.
One visual that really stood out to me every time it was on screen, the mother's hair. It was It was a
Yeah.
masterpiece. I was getting like real hard David Bowie vibes of her the
Yeah.
entire movie, like the star earrings and just the hair. It's like she just went like full Super Saiyan. It was just up the
Yeah.
entire movie.
I just was like, I mean, the 80s just sometimes just feel like such a long time ago because I'm just like, is this an attractive, super hot woman? Like, they're all acting like it's fucking like, they're all acting like it's Angelina Jolie out there. And I'm like, this is definitely like, she looked like, I was like, she kind of looks like Sigourney Weaver, but like less attractive. She kind of, it's like she looks like an old Sigourney Weaver. And
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, she was not that old here. So I'm sorry. But I was just like, really, this chick? I mean, I just feel like also she's a weird actress. I just wasn't into it.
Yeah.
I was confused the whole time. I'm like, what is going on in the story? But then also with her, I will say the best actor I think we can agree on is Doug Bradley, who plays Pinhead.
Explorers in the further regions of experience. Demons to some, angels to others.
Yeah, he has an Anthony Hopkins kind
Yeah.
of amount of time in the movie, Silence of the Lambs
Yeah, but
situation.
he's like interesting, and I think that's funny that you mentioned that because the director said that when they were figuring out like or when he created the character of Pinhead, that he wanted somebody who was like, you know, a Hannibal Lecter, where instead of like, because at the time it was like, Michael Myers and Freddy Krueger and like Jason Voorhees are like the top like villains right now at that time. So they were like, he's like, I want someone more like Hannibal Lecter, right? Who's like, he's smart, right? And he's always a few steps ahead of you. I think he was talking about the books, obviously, not the movie.
Yeah, I must have been talking about the Manhunter book
Yes.
because I was just looking it up. I was like, Silence of the Lambs in '91,
Yeah, sorry.
but
No, I meant just like Hannibal Lecter, the
yeah,
character, the fact that he was like super smart and always like had that thing of like just as evil as the rest of the guys, but he's like he'd probably be at least 3 to 4 steps ahead of you at any given time. And that's
yeah.
kind of like what he wanted with Pinhead is that he's smart and he's like can he communicate. He's not just like, this
Hmm.
silent killer.
Yeah. And the thing about this movie is that it has some of the best practical effects, like especially for the time, but also it has like some of the worst special effects. Like the little like sparks that would fly when they would play with the box. I'm just like, did someone draw this on with a crayon? Like
I
what is
know. They use that a lot at the end of the movie too, and I read that like the director said that they like ran out of money for those things and like that him and his friend like edited it over a weekend when they were like drinking a shit ton of fucking alcohol. And he's like, I'm surprised, honestly, that it turned out as good as it did. Which I thought made it really funny.
But yeah, like the practical effects are I mean they're gooey and gross, but they are very impressive. Like that whole scene when Frank is like is coming out of the floor and like
Yeah,
regenerating.
regenerating after the blood is spilled up there. Yes.
It's like stop motion to make it seem fast, but like it all like looks really good. So it's really impressive, just yeah, from the time period that they did this, and yeah, like as they progressed, it's kind of like the Saw franchise. Like as they kept going, they just got kind of grosser and grosser.
I mean, yeah, it's very much of like we forgot why people really liked the first one. But
Yeah,
I think also like they don't have once you lose that, like I mean, they also lost Clive Barker after the first one. I think the second one is still like on par with the original. I'm sure I know the original's better, but I think the
yeah,
second one, from what I remember, is pretty close. And then everything I've heard about the other ones is just like weird. Doesn't
yeah.
sound like they're anything like at all related. I mean, I know they are, but just like kind of weird plots and they kind of lose the whole point of it, which again, I wasn't super here for the point of it. So I was like, yeah, I'd be down to see like maybe a detective story mixed in here. That sounds fun.
Well, and like when they get into the later movies, they ended up like just not even writing Hellraiser stories. They bought other scripts and then they just threw Pinhead in to make it work. And it's just kind of weird. But I mean, I think we can kind of wrap this up
Yes,
here.
please.
Because the thing that I'm most happy about with the new movie is that they finally made a Hellraiser movie that really revolved around the Cenobites. Because that's
Yes.
the reason we love the first one. The design of them is awesome, and they're like, hey, it's been 30 years. What if we made a movie where like this is about them and not some other story that involves a puzzle box?
I agree. It was like there was that, but it's like it all like we got a lot more understanding and like seeing the Cenobites than like the first one ever did.
Yeah.
And I feel like people are still complaining that we didn't see them enough. And I'm like, well, then just watch any of the other previous sequels. I'm sure that they're like the stars of those ones because they don't have anybody else in them.
There is a place that you can watch it. It's called YouTube. Just
Yeah.
Cenobite scenes.
I
That's it.
know. It's like they're not I mean, it's literally like there still has to be a fucking hero for you to root for or somebody, not a hero, but like a main character. There's supposed to be a plot. It can't just be Cenobite Party, which like I mean, maybe we could have a spinoff for like a one episode special. Yeah, I'm here for it.
Cenobite,
Yeah.
the movie.
People would fucking be there, dude. But yeah, let's talk about the good one. Oh shit, hot take.
Suffering has already begun.
All right. We are here to talk about as I just said, the good Hellraiser, the one that just dropped 2022 on Hulu, directed by David Bruckner and starring a new Pinhead this time with Jamie Clayton taking over the role from Doug Bradley and
The
others.
fourth Pinhead.
Yeah. And now my favorite, definitely.
She was pretty great.
But yeah, David Bruckner is like the reason I was like, I mean, I like Hellraiser. I think it's great, but like it's just not my jam. It's not my thing. So I wasn't like, I'm going to be here day one for this movie until I found out that David Bruckner was directing because he's done some of my favorite movies, including The Night House, which just came out in 2020,
That was good.
and he also did The Ritual, which came out on Netflix.
Just watch that. That
Yeah,
was great.
so good. And he also did the first segment, I think, in VHS.
Is that the one with the creature
The
and
girl,
the girls
yeah,
in
the
the
siren chick.
motel room?
Mm-hmm.
That one's hard.
That's my favorite one in that whole episode, I think. And then also there's another anthology movie he did with the same guys from VHS called Southbound. It's
Hmm.
actually like two of the directors who are the ones who did Ready or Not and Scream. They also did this other one called Southbound, and he directed a segment in that's great. It says he also directed episodes of Creep Show, the TV show, which
Hmm.
I need to watch that because anything this guy does, I'm just like obsessed with it. I think he's got such talent. His visuals are always just out of control and they're
Mhm.
so cool. And just the way that his his visual style is unbelievable, and it really affected itself like really well in this new Hellraiser. What did you think?
I was a really big fan of this one, and this one's a little bit different for him, for
Yeah.
Derek Bruckner. Like he's done creature features, he's done some supernatural kind of horror stuff. Hellraiser and like I guess they're technically demons or
Mhm.
something. It's a little bit different from. I think he did great with it, and especially like you said, the visual part of it. Because like Hellraiser, the reason why everyone loves the original, and regardless of all the goo, they just love the aesthetic, like the look
Yes.
of the Cenobites, and I think he crushed it. I thought this movie looked so good, and the Cenobites, like they kind of got a little bit of a redesign, and I actually liked it better. I liked
Mm.
them not in the leather, like looking like they're in the Matrix.
Exactly. It gave him I like how I think in an interview he said he used the like idea of like the leather and stuff from the first one and made it so like leather is basically skin, right? So
Hmm.
he turned their skin into the leather, and that's what I think made it where they look more like they're definitely still creepy, but they look like almost beautiful and like ethereal or something like or angelic like angels, which is kind of what
Speak
from
for
the first
yourself.
one. Well, they kind of are beautiful in their own way, but the whole basic plot of the movie is not at all the same as the original one actually, where it's still a take on Clive Barker's 1987 horror classic, but in this one has a young woman struggling with addiction who comes into possession, aka she steals the ancient puzzle box, unaware of its purpose to summon the Cenobites. And I would love to hear if that's about your plot of the movie. What's your summary?
My summary of this movie is a Hellraiser movie that's actually about the Hellraisers.
You mean the Cenobites?
Yeah, I'm calling them the Hellraisers.
The
Are
Hellraisers? That's
I'm
good.
not going to I'm not going to yield that Frank in the original is the Hellraiser. No, the Cenobites are the Hellraisers.
Is he supposed to be?
I don't know. I'm just saying
Okay.
this is the first movie actually about the Cenobites and actually about the box. The box in the first one is like a B plot.
I didn't learn anything about it from the first one, just that if you solve it, you will die horribly and you should never even look at it, basically.
Well, you don't die, you get tortured for eternity.
Same thing, except worse. So you're right. But yeah, no, it's basically like this movie, I felt like one of the coolest things about it was that never really got super into. I mean, granted, I only saw the first two, but I never was super involved or interested in like the Hellraiser lore or like any of like kind of how all that stuff worked or like I didn't know any of the mythology behind it. I also feel like they didn't really explain it very well in those older movies. So this one I just felt like it really explained it a lot better, and it made me like really interested to know like about how all of the different configurations of the puzzle, like how those can affect what ends up happening, as well as like I didn't realize it's a whole separate thing to solve the box and then to like get cut by it. I just assumed that everybody who solves it gets cut by it and then they bleed.
That's a new thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I thought that that
Yeah.
was interesting, and that was something that was like, oh, that's cool.
One of the things that stood out to me when I started this is they introduced the idea of the box, what it does, and its connection to the afterlife or hell or whatever that is, the Leviathan. They did all of that in the first 10 minutes of the movie. And they didn't even touch any of that until like the third or fourth movie.
Yeah, that was all
W-
new to me. I was
it-
like, wow, this is informative, but not overly informative. Like you were
Yeah,
learning it with the characters, kind of a deal.
it was really good because yeah, like the fourth movie, by the time you get to any of the backstory of the box, you're like, I've seen so much weird shit. They're like, I don't even know how I feel about anything in this
Yeah.
franchise anymore.
Like, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm too confused now. This has been too long. Like they barely explain the Cenobites in the box in the first one. All I know is that yeah, you open it and that's awful. Don't do it.
Yeah, well, and then that was the other thing with this Hellraiser that I really liked is the slow roll that they did of building up to the Cenobites. Because
Mhm.
in the original, it's like you see the Cenobites in the first 30 seconds of the movie. Like you they rip them apart and then you see them and it's like, oh, there's Pinhead, and then it's like an hour until we see him again. And this one, they tease you with the chains, but like doesn't show its whole glory or whatever. It doesn't lay its loaf out. Takes its
Ew.
time with it.
That is a really gross way to put that, but you're right. But I don't like that. But it is cool the way that they, like, they show them a lot more, but they, like, don't do it too much, and it's very much of a way of, like, you learn so much more about them without learning too much. But you learn enough about the mythology without feeling like you've learned everything. Like,
Yeah.
that's what David Bruckner really does that in a lot of his movies too, like The Night House and The Ritual especially. I'm thinking that,
Yeah.
like, you get a little bit about what these things are and, like, what their deal is, but you really don't know a lot. There's a lot
Yeah.
of questions that you will have and, like, things they're not sure about, but he's just like, you get the important stuff, right? I mean, that's basically
They did it right because when I rewatched the original, I just kept thinking, I was like, wait, when do I see the Cenobites again? Like the whole movie, I'm just thinking, I'm like, okay, yes, Frank, you're a weird dead gooey thing in the attic, but like, when do I see the Cenobites again? Like, I want to see Pinhead again. And then this movie, they don't show you at the beginning. They show the chains and stuff, but then like you get little pieces and then it leads to the whole ending. But I was like, that's the right way to do it because I'm not distracted the whole movie of like, where are the cool things that I want to see again?
We will not be denied. Your blood is in our hands now, ours to claim at any time.
oh, you see plenty of them and they're all upsetting. They're all upsetting, but they're beautiful too in their own weird way, but, like, the visuals again, this movie, like, when they're the chick in the back of the car, it's coming for her, and, like, the car, like, separates, like, from, like, where like, because 'cause you're like, "How the fuck are all these Cenobites gonna show up in this car?" But then it's like the back of the car, like, goes out, it turns into, like, this endless hallway, and then, like, she looks back and, like, her friends are in the car, and it's, like,
Yeah.
really far away from her. I was like, "That shit was scary."
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing I mean, after watching all these horror movies, I have to say, I think the Cenobites in this shit is the worst of the worst. Out of I mean, besides maybe the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars and being digested slowly for thousands of years, that might suck too, but this is eternal, just the worst kind of torture. I mean, this is awful shit. It's scary, and I feel like this movie made it more scary than, like, just gross
Yeah.
for me.
That was one of the other things that stuck out to me is like they this movie was gory and it definitely like had a lot of stuff to it, but it didn't have like the gross kind of stuff that we talked about with the
Mhm.
first movie. Like one of the things I hated in the first movie is like there were so many close-ups of the chains and the hooking of the skin
Yeah.
and like it pulling the skin, but like it looked like cheese on a pizza. Like when you pull when you pull pizza, it's like it's like
Yeah, it looked
that.
disgusting,
It
but,
was
like,
like,
also, like, it was
ugh.
just yeah.
Like this, it didn't have 500 close-ups of that. It was just like, and I liked that so much more.
They had some close-up shots that felt like it was, like, paying homage to those, like
Hmm.
or, like, shots where, like, the skin was, like, growing back and it was, like, a really close up, it kind of was cool, but yeah, I was really more worried going into this that it was just gonna be very similar to the other one and be disgusting, and it was not at all. Like, it had some good gory stuff, but, like, nothing that, like, I was like, "Oh, I can't watch this for" like, I
Yeah.
would never rewatch it. I was like, "This would be the Hellraiser movie that I would watch at any time.
Oh
This
yeah.
was fun."
This is the Hellraiser movie that I would recommend to people.
Yeah, exactly.
Not the other one unless I know your background. We have years of friendship between us. I know the weird shit you're into. This is one that I'm like, "Oh, you like horror movies? You should watch the Hulu one."
Yeah. Please God, you will not like the other ones.
But I'm 100% with you. This is the best Hellraiser movie.
100%.
This is
It
the
has to be.
this is the one that actually has a plot that develops
that we actually are interested in too.
Yeah, it
I
had
thought like the drug addict parallel with the whole thing with the Cenobites is very similar.
yeah, and they took out all the weird sexual stuff.
Thank God. I mean, there's still some sex, but it was just nothing as gross and weird as any of whatever they thought was sexy in the first couple movies. It was not at all.
The weirdest thing from the first one that I forgot to mention is when Kirsty is in the hospital and she's doing the box and then she like puts her finger in a hole. I'm like, what? She like uses her pinky.
I'm really glad that they got rid of all that shit because it was just like this stuff isn't sexy. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I mean, the whole point of these movies, right, is that these people go to the Cenobites thinking, I've experienced all the pleasure. These guys will know the real pleasures. But then it's like, oh, I'm sorry. These guys who are like flayed alive in all these crazy positions, they only know torture and pain and they think
yeah,
it's the same. So it's like, it should not be sexy in any way. There's no sexiness going on with torture and pain. That is not sexy. And if you're into that shit, good for you. But I am not gonna watch 11 movies about that. I would watch this one because it gets rid of all that stupid shit. And it has like that interesting like mythology stuff that I was actually like, oh, that's cool. Like the fact that there's 6 different sides of the puzzle and 6 different configurations that
yeah.
you
What
can
are
you can
those?
make. I had to look them up because I didn't remember, but somebody on Reddit had already written it all out. But there's liminal, which was sensation. So that's like the dude
That's
from
the
the
dude who get.
original. Yeah, this one says the traditional Hellraiser experience, right? Which is I want the most pleasure, but the Cenobites think pleasure and pain are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Leviathan is the second one, which is the god of like the god or the demon, whatever the fuck he is. Leviathan, the big smoke creature thing. I think he's in the second movie too. But that choice means power. And that's what like the ending of the movie, they give that guy power because they
He
realize he
becomes a
didn't.
Cenobite.
Yeah, which is basically they peel you up and make you some new work of art, and then you like learn everything, I guess, or get all the power from Leviathan and then become a Cenobite, which was pretty cool, but like really fucking fucked up. And then Lament is what the main girl Riley chooses, which is
You choose to live, to carry that weight, bitter and brief.
so then that's the only 3 that we actually see in the movie, but the other 3 lore, and that was knowledge, which like I think the whole theme of these gifts is that they're not really gifts. They're like the monkey's
Mhm.
paw, where it's like, yeah, it sounds like it's a gift, but it's really like actually they're gonna twist it and make it fucked up. The last one, it says lauderant. I don't know if that's correct. It says it's a Latin translation that means to be praised. So I think the priest, aka Pinhead in this movie, says that that one's love. So I don't know how the fuck they would love you, but it would be bad, I bet. I would be scared of that, yeah. And then the last one is Lazarus, and that is resurrection. And that's what the main girl thought she wanted the whole movie because her brother was taken when she had solved the box but not got cut, and then he got cut by it, and then they took him
Mhm.
with chains. So she wanted to bring him back, but knowing how their other gifts have turned out, she decided not to because it probably would have been like, "Oh, here's his flayed corpse and he's still alive forever."
Yeah.
Like or like a pet cemetery thing where it's like, "Oh, you don't really want him back."
Yeah.
Now they're evil and fucked up, right?
Yeah. Bring him back on, and he's like on the brink of death, so then he just dies again.
Yeah, it's like fucked up, man. Like basically, I think she chose the best option by the end, which was I don't want anything from you. And they were kind of like, "Oh, Jesus." Like I feel like the Pinhead and all the other ones, they kind of were like, "We're freeing you. These are gifts. Like you'll be happy with these." And it's like, I clearly think our definitions of good and bad are definitely opposite.
I think if there was like a little brief description of each of those, like you just
Yeah.
laid out, I think everyone would choose Lament. You know, just like, oh, status quo. I'll
Yeah.
stick to that.
Let's all just agree that no one's going to choose liminal sensation ever again.
Yeah, I saw the ratchet set shoved through the other guy. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pass on that.
Yes. I mean, again, with the knowledge, even if instead of like Leviathan, if he didn't choose all that power, it's like all that knowledge, you'd probably go insane from
Yeah.
whatever knowledge that would be poured into you. Like, I would not choose any of these things. They all sound bad. I can get my own, I'll be fine. I'm not good at puzzles anyways, so I wouldn't even be in this scenario unless someone pricked me with the box, which I thought was an interesting thing because I wanted to ask you about that.
Okay.
So in the original, it seems like I know the box cuts him, right? But he also solved it. So then the chains take him, right?
Yeah, in the first one, the blood is not really part of
Doesn't he
it.
also get cut by it or no? I
Maybe.
thought he did.
I mean, maybe does, but like the thing is solving the box. Like Kirsty solves the box. She never gets
Yeah.
cut by it.
Okay. So then that's what I was wondering is that's why maybe they showed up to her with like an option versus like they rip you apart if your blood spills on it. That's kind
Yeah.
of like the implication this movie's going off of. So like she solves the box first in the first configuration, but then she doesn't get pricked by it and she passes out and then her brother finds her and he accidentally gets stabbed by it and then he gets taken to hell. So then my question is because then that happens like basically 5 more times because they have to do it 6 times to get to the ultimate configuration to see the god Leviathan or whatever the fuck and ask him for something. And at the end, though, she chooses nothing. So then is her brother going to be tortured in hell for eternity? Or is he just like, they did say like his end was glorious. So does that mean that he died? And like, do all 5 or 6 of the people that died this time besides her, do they all get tortured like that forever? Or are they just like, oh, we'll take you as a sacrifice, but we're eventually going to get you, the ultimate one who solved the box?
Yeah, I'm not sure because yeah, as you were talking, I was just remembering that yeah, they say they require a sacrifice, but that's not necessarily this. So in the original, if you open the box, you are your drive for opening the box is to seek endless pleasure, or endless
Or
sensation
power
or
or
what.
whatever the fuck.
Well, it's like they're not even seeking like power. It's just like people like Frank is someone who's just,
Horny
plow
as hell.
he's plowed every field in the world and he's like I need more. And so he's like doing the whole pleasure thing. This one they take a different approach where yeah, like you have a choice of what your reward is for it, and I really liked that.
But that's only if you make it through all 6.
Yeah.
You have to but which you couldn't do unless you're sacrificing others. So
So yeah,
it seems like maybe there's like a separate option where like if you manipulate it so that you're not getting stabbed, you're giving it other blood, then you're giving them victims. But then yeah, are those victims also tortured or is it also like the person who solved the box who's the one that gets tortured? That's who they really want. I can't really tell. They also seem to be into just torturing anybody, so
their whole thing is based around torture. So I'm gonna assume that if you get killed by the box, sacrifice or not, you're spending eternity being.
I mean, that fits with the first one because that's what happened to Julia and, like,
Mhm.
so, like, by the next one, she's still in hell,
Oh yeah, that's
so,
right.
again, I'm not sure, I assume that was cleared with Clive Barker even if he didn't direct it, but I wonder about that because then I'm like, granted, she chose right at the end. You don't want anything from these fucks, but maybe trade places with your brother. I kind of feel like unless there's no coming back from that shit, I think that's pretty fucked. And the roommate. And
Yeah.
she doesn't seem that like she's like, "Oh, I did the right thing." But it's like, "Yeah, but did you?" Like he's going to be tortured for eternity like pretty extremely just
Yeah.
for like fucking trying to save your life because you took some drugs and almost OD'd.
I guess we'll find out in the inevitable sequel.
There has to be a fucking sequel, right?
Because I feel like this movie did pretty well.
It definitely did. I mean, I think that there should be. David Bruckner said he's into it.
Yeah.
Give it to him, baby.
Give it to him, baby. I l- I really loved what they did with the box and how it changed shapes and forms and stuff. Like it was so cool.
I really enjoyed that and like the whole just this whole thing that we learned all this stuff, I was, like, actually, like, intrigued by all this shit,
Uh-huh.
and I thought it was just a cool way to, like, expand things, but then keep it, probably close to what the original mythology is, but for me, I just thought it was really super interesting, and I normally am not very interested in this shit, so I think it did a hell of a job.
I was not expecting it. I loved when she stabbed the Chatterer,
Mhm. Yeah,
Cenobite.
oh, that was the other thing.
I was like,
That was
"Oh,
incredible.
I definitely thought she was gonna stab the asshole boyfriend."
I mean, he deserved it, and he gets it at the end because, of course, that guy's a fucking dick.
Yeah,
I mean, he was also smart the whole movie. I was kind of like, I like this guy because he's like, "Can we just get out of here, please? Like, whatever this is, we have to go." And I was like, "Yeah, thank you, finally." But then I'm like, "Yeah, of course, he's gotta be bad." But yeah, I did think like that was pretty cool. Has nobody ever tried that? Because I would have been doing that shit if I had solved the box and those guys came for me. Chatterer, especially, they always get up. He gets up so fucking close because he has to. And I hate those teeth. I know people were like really sad that he died, but I was like, good. I
uh,
fucking hate that guy.
he'll be
He's
back.
so upsetting.
Well, I
Is
thought
he though? Is he
I
tortured now or is he at peace?
I mean, he seemed he welcomed what was
Yeah.
about to happen to him. I felt like the at the end, the guy was turned into the new Chatterer because like, pulled his face and showed his teeth.
But not as much, and it was, like,
But
I think he's
it's
still
still
something different.
early stages, I don't know.
It's not like they're, like, a set role, I think
Yeah,
they all get tortured in their own unique way, but I wanna know who's behind the art design because it's pretty incredible.
yeah. Well, and
Who's coming up with these weird ass shit?
if he is gonna be the Chatterer, then he's gonna actually have a face because 'cause they're not gonna have an actor,
Yeah.
you know, bring that actor in and rip his face off.
I do love that actor, though, who plays, like, the billionaire who's, like, been doing this the whole time, and now he, like, got his reward, and it was fucking, like, a harp shoved through his chest that was
Yeah,
pulling his, like, his veins and arteries, like, kill me.
yeah.
Or his nerves, that's what it was. Jesus Christ, again, why? I would rather have no sensation for the rest of my life than have one iota of that.
See, and if he knew the rules, he would have been like, I switched to lament, so, just take this thing out of me, please."
I mean, why did it take him 6 years? I get that he's in pain, but couldn't this guy have, like, done this earlier? Like, it just did seem like, why is this happening 6 years later? This guy's been in pain. I think he'd wanna rush this process.
Yeah, well, it's because his mother-in-law or something, she took the box.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, so she had it in storage,
Mm,
and then he got the boyfriend to lead her to it,
sure.
and
Yeah, I don't remember.
because the original idea is he was gonna lead the girl to the box, and then the girl was gonna open the box and cut herself, and then she was gonna be the first one.
Yeah. But then she took it and ran with
Yeah.
it. Thank God for her, but also it sounds like for everybody else around her, like, fuck that. I was happy that Colin did not die, the her brother's
Yeah.
boyfriend. I really liked him, and I mean, he should have died. He looked like he got pretty fucked up by the end, like he had those like ropes on him, and then
Yeah.
like he got literally like the guy stabbed him in the stomach and then stabbed
It's
up.
up. Yeah.
That should be all coming out. What the fuck? I did also enjoy the, like, fact that they had, like, all the gates around the mansion that they're in the
Mhm.
whole time and how that was all, like, a configuration to keep out the Cenobites. I thought that was pretty cool because it's like, "Oh, it matches back to the puzzle thing."
Mhm.
I enjoyed it. I really
Yeah.
liked that. This movie just felt like the refresh that Hellraiser definitely needed, and I feel like I'm ready for, like, 5 more of these ones if David Bruckner can work it out and keep going on these. I love it. I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
Real quick on the billionaire guy. I don't know if I honestly thought it, but I think I wanted it. When they went into the sex dungeon on the
Mhm.
lower part, and I'm like, "Oh, please make this a 50 Shades of Grey crossover." This
Gross.
I'm I think I'm seeing I think it can happen. Like, even though this is happening in it wasn't happening in Serbia?
No, that was at the
I thought the mansion was in
oh,
Serbia.
maybe. I thought it was close to where they were.
I don't know.
I don't really remember now that you think
You're the
about
one who
it.
watched it twice.
I only watched it okay, so I watched it, and then Nolan had been watching it, and he actually really liked it, and he was, like, trying to stay up, but then he had to work the next day, so he passed out, and then he, like I mean, we watched the whole, like, 3 quarters of it again. So
Uh,
I just didn't watch the beginning again. I need to go back and watch that part because I was not paying attention to the Serbia. I noticed that, but then I thought, "Do these people all live in Serbia? Is that what we're
it's
supposed
like,
to be told?"
how did they get to Serbia so fast?
I was wondering that too because I was like, "Yeah, that's a thing, I guess." I couldn't fly to Serbia on a moment's notice. I don't know about you, but I also like I feel like they drove down the street to go get her from the mansion.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when she was there alone and like fucked up shit and it's like they all just show up to help her and it's like, "How the fuck did you guys get here if you had to fly to Serbia?" There's no way. But yeah, I mean, I watch The Night House and The Ritual all the time, so I'm sure this will be in the rotation now
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's also just it's got some dark fucked up shit, but it's just incredibly watchable.
Yeah, this was a great example of a of a reboot. I think it's safe to
Mhm.
say this is a reboot.
I
There's
would assume so because there's a new Pinhead, but
yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
unless like Kirsty pops up at some point, like it-
I hope not. This isn't the movie franchise for that. That's gotta
yeah,
be like with the originals. They were stretching it when they tried to bring back the chick from the original Texas Chainsaw.
yeah.
So it's like, also the actress is dead, so you're really reaching. Like, there's just no reason to, you know?
But yeah, this was great. Like I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know if I'd put it in like great must see horror.
For me this year, I feel like it is.
Yeah, it's really good. Like it was much better than I was expecting. I think it's a really good, just fresh start for the franchise. I
Mhm.
really hope with a sequel. I don't know if it's just me. Personally, I don't really care to see any of these characters again. I would kind of like a fresh, different story, different characters. I just
Yeah.
all these characters I was kind of meh. I think I like the billionaire the most, but I don't know,
Yeah.
just a lot of the I don't know, I just wasn't really engaged with it. So, but I loved Pinhead. What's that actress's name?
Jamie Clayton.
Jamie Clayton. Yeah,
Excellent.
she was great.
Our gifts are boundless. I want them. Yes, you do.
Unbelievable. Like, I thought she was so good as Pinhead that and also they call her the priest
Mhm.
because in the original that's like in the book, I guess that's what the name is. And they gave him Pinhead for like the movie to make it like a thing. So
Yeah,
now he's like a horror icon.
yeah.
But
Clive
now it's like
Clive Barker never actually referred to him as Pinhead. It was like a fan created thing, and then it just stuck.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
like it's like that was created based on the movie once you like visualized him, you know? So
Mhm.
but yeah, I thought it was excellent, and I'm here for another sequel. I think that they should greenlight it right away and give them more budget, just like they're doing with the guys who just did the new Scream. Like these good reboots, like let's get this shit going. Give me a new trilogy.
And here's what I want. Call me crazy. Let's have the Predator open the box. See who wins that. Little
Ooh, that's
Prey Hellraiser crossover event.
dude. That would that the tickets would sell themselves. That's a fucking excellent
I
idea.
think you mean the Hulu subscriptions.
Whatever. I wanna see it, like, live, and it's like a fucking WWE fight, but not WWE, I want it, like, UFC, like, bloody and shit, like, I wanna know what happens because I mean, Predator, he'd have to get taken. There's no way.
Yeah.
Unless he can fucking, like, X-ray scan it, see what nah, I don't need to deal with that shit. I'm not gonna open it.
Hellraisers are winning that. Pinhead's just gonna pull all of the weapons off, like with the
Yeah.
chains. He's screwed. Plus, Predator dies in every fucking movie, so he's definitely
Yeah.
gonna lose.
But then why do people think he's so fucking good? Because they're always like, "Predator's the fucking shit," and it's
The
like,
thing I've never understood. The Predator dies in every movie. There's a
I
wide
know.
range of athleticism that
He
kills them.
even he has to team up with humans in Alien versus Predator because he can't take the fucking aliens. Like, come on. Even the humans can kill the fucking aliens in those aliens movies, right? I mean, you're right. I think Predator gets way too much No offense to him. There's some good ones, I'm sure, but
We got to be honest, people.
yeah.
Stop believing the lies.
Stop believing the lies, okay? The new Hellraiser is the best movie. And what was the other thing we just said? Sorry, I'm losing track of our hot take.
Prey,
Yeah.
Predator.
Oh, the Predator is actually a shit fucking like
Yeah.
villain, and he's not a good. He's probably the worst at battle out of every villain I could think of. I think Esther could even take him.
We talked about this, I think, for a second in our villain draft, where it's like, no, not picking the Predator. He has the worst track record.
Well, I was just like, I'm sorry, but like fucking Nolan's always in my ear about how badass the Predator is. And I'm like, I mean, he's hella cool, but like he also was lost to like I mean everybody.
Next time he says it, just say, "Oh, which one?" Because they all died.
Did he lose to Gary Busey or was it Danny Glover in that movie? Because I
Danny
feel like
Glover.
but Gary Busey's also in that movie,
He
so
might
technically
he might
he
have
lost
chimed in.
if he lost to yeah, that's upsetting. You're right. I think that's the hot take of them all, but it's the truest, if
The
anything.
truest.
But we're also gonna stick with the new Hellraiser is the best Hellraiser movie, and come fight us if you disagree, because I don't really give a shit. It's
Yeah.
fucking great.
We'll talk. We'll argue with you about Hellraiser. We will not argue with you about Predator.
No,
It's
it's
a fact. Predator dies constantly.
I'm updating his fucking Wikipedia page tonight just to see like how many people like probably update that thing all the time. I just want to post it everywhere and see how many people get hella mad about it. But
Uh,
it's like I'll give you however many Predator movies, 7, 8 worth of evidence. I think that's enough. If Freddy had enough movies where he got killed, then he would be a shit villain. He comes back at the end of every single one. Predator never pops up for the final scare. He's always fucking got his head chopped off and put up in a trophy room somewhere else.
oh, the
Just the facts.
Predator.
Yeah. I love Predator, don't get me wrong, but fuck the Predator. He's a little bitch.